Welcome back to the Marching to Madness College Basketball Podcast, where I have Kent State Golden Flashes head coach Rob Senderoff. He returns as he starts his 12th season at Kent after they won 14 of 15 games to end the regular season just last year. Coach, welcome back.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you as well. Now, you won 5 in a row to start, and then you had a couple of tough games against Charleston and the University of Houston, who's number 1 in the nation right now, 49-44 at Houston, a defensive slugfest, maybe the defensive slugfest of the year so far.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say brutal losses, like tough to swallow, both of them. College of Charleston, we had a road trip. We went down on a Tuesday down to College of Charleston. They're very good. They're coming off winning their own tournament, and we were up 25 seconds to go. They hit a 3 to give them a 2-point lead, and then we missed a 3 at the buzzer that would have won the game for us. Tough one. Then traveled down to Houston on Thanksgiving night. Practice there Friday, play, an elite team and program, University of Houston. And then we were up with 1:15 to go. They scored a basket on top of the rim. And then we missed a layup, with about 30 seconds to go that would have given us the lead. We fouled, missed, and fouled. So the score ended up being a 5-point loss, but we were up 1 with a minute to go and down 1 with 30 seconds to go in the game. Just a slugfest is how you described it. And, people have asked me, I said, it felt like, two heavyweights, battling in the ring for 40 minutes. So, they're an elite program, and, Coach Sampson's one of, if not the best in college basketball. So proud of our resolve, disappointed in the loss.
I agree. Coach Sampson comes on here with me actually from time to time, so that makes him a good coach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Hey, there was one stat I saw that was really interesting. You forced 23 Houston turnovers and scored 18 points off those.
Yeah. So far to date, defensively, that's been our calling card. That's where we've, done our most damage is creating turnovers, turning those turnovers into points. It's been key to the start of our season. I think, defensively, I've seen us, I look at all the metrics and all those things, and obviously different systems calculate things differently, but I've seen us anywhere between the 9th rated defense in the country and the 40th rated defense in the country through 7 games. It's obviously a small sample size, but we have 2 guards, Malique Jacobs and Sincere Carey, who are elite defensive players. And, we have some physicality up front. We've got some guys that can switch and some bigs that, have some length and physicality. So we've done a pretty good job on that end of the floor. And, you mentioned the 18 points off turnovers against Houston, 23 turnovers caused. I'm sure there's some of them that, they feel like were unforced, but I think we forced a bunch too.
Oh, yeah. Coach, another thing that jumps out defensively is the fact you're only giving up 61 points per game, while opponents are shooting 36.3% from the floor, and that's 17th in college basketball. And by the way, as we're talking, let's tell the audience out there, or remind the audience out there, there are 363 Division I college basketball teams.
Yeah. So, again, it's a small sample size, but, right now, we've really done a good job on that end of the floor. College of Charleston went to the free throw line, 26 times to our 4. So that's an area we need to clean up, to be able to compete as hard as we are without fouling. We need to clean that up a little bit, but the effort on that end of the floor has been really good. And, that's something that carries. Like, you can take that on the road. You can, sometimes you may not make shots on the road, or you may not make shots at home, but if we can continue to defend at the level that we have, we'll give ourselves an opportunity in a lot of these games. And quite honestly, I think in the Houston game at one point, we went down 39-30 midway through the second half. And that's a time that we went 4 or 5 straight possessions without scoring, but they didn't score either. So it allowed us to climb back in the game and take the lead with 1:14 to go.
Coach, you mentioned Sincere Carey. I remember he transferred over from Duquesne, and he's your leading scorer at 17.9 points per game. He gets 5.6 assists. Just ways, now you talked about his defense as well. Just ways that he has an impact on games that might not come out of the statistical numbers.
Yeah, the thing that I think he's as good as he is offensively, which mentioned 18.6 assists, and he rebounds well for his position. To me, what's most impressive about him is, Marcus Sasser's an elite player, a preseason All-American. He held him to 16 from the field,
Wow.
and had a number of turnovers created off of him. We played Portland, who, they're a really good team. We got to see that. Their leading scorer was, I forget his first name, but the last name is Wood. He's a 6'7" wing. He really took him out of the game as a perimeter shooter. So Sin's versatility defensively, his ability to punch through ball screens and not get screened, and his ability to close out and take away shots, even from bigger guys, is really the most impressive thing that he does on the court. And he does a lot of impressive things on the court.
Yeah, he gets to the free throw line the most of any player you have on average, but also Malique Jacobs and Miryne Thomas are steady from the line as well. Curious how these players are able to assert their games to get that many free throw opportunities. Plus, these two, in addition to Sincere, are your double figure scorers.
Yeah, and Malik's another guy, again, defensively. He earlier this season had 10 steals in a game against Chicago State, set a school record. Last year, he had the first triple-double in school history. So his versatility as a player and physicality, you mentioned getting fouled. That, to me, last year he led us in rebounding from the guard spot. So his versatility as both an offensive and defensive player, again, both being what I'd call two-way players, really separate them. Malik's been on the all-defensive team in our league for each of the last 2 years. And then we added Miryne Thomas to the mix this year. And Myron's a forward who, he's great with his ball screen defense. He's great at not getting posted up defensively, and he's a really good shooter. Right now, his percentages aren't what they've been career-wise from three, but he gets fouled, like you said. He's a very, very good shooter, and he brings tremendous versatility to our lineup. He's a long, athletic forward who can sometimes play against bigger players and can sometimes switch on to some guards, and that's really helped us on the defensive side of the ball.
Giovanni Santiago with 9.3 points. He leads you in minutes. And I know he and Thomas find shots as well as Carey and Jacobs.
Yeah. And Gio is sort of the ultimate team guy. He's a point guard who plays off the ball a lot, so his basketball IQ is really high. His shot selection is incredibly good. He very, very rarely, if ever, shoots anything other than good shots you'd want him to shoot. He struggled in the Houston game from the floor, but he also did a really good job defensively, and did a really good job on Jamal Sheed, who's a great point guard, one of the best in the country. So, Gio brings experience. This is his 4th year here. He's a junior, obviously, with the COVID year, but has played in 100 games now, and he's been part 30 minutes a game for the last 3 years. So, he's a guy who, when other teams watch us play, everyone talks about Sin and Malique because they're the focal point, but coaches always bring up Gio and the intangibles. He swipes at steals. He just makes a lot of winning basketball plays. And he's got a really good feel and basketball IQ, which I think allow him to make those plays.
Coach, you guys are around 43% from the field. I was just curious, what are some ways you can up that number?
I think the first way we could up that number is not play Houston again. Okay.
Okay.
Because in that game, I'm looking at it here, we shot 24% from the field. They are an unbelievable defensive team. So I think our team stats are going to be skewed for a little bit because of that game, but we have to do a better job with our spacing. We have multiple point guards on the court at all time. There's really no excuse for our field goal percentage on offense to be in the low 40s. It should be higher, and we need to work on some of it being shot selection, but more of it being spacing and making sure we're creating opportunities for our teammates. It's really a point of emphasis here this week as we prepare for South Dakota State and Gonzaga. We know that that's a big key for us moving forward, is making sure that we're creating good shots for our teammates and creating assisted baskets and assisted opportunities throughout the course of a game. So you bring up an incredible point. We were about 47% before Houston, but even with that, we weren't what I think we could be. And then obviously the Houston game exposed us a little bit in that area that we need to get back to moving the basketball and creating space for our guys to play.
I found another defensive statistic when I was making, the questions for the show that I thought was interesting. You only allow 19.6 field goals made per game. That's 13th out of 363 teams. There's that number again, Coach.
Yeah. We've done a really good job at creating turnovers and create turnovers. That's one. Get back in transition. That's two. And then what we've got to continue to work on is making sure the team only gets one shot. That's an area that we got to get better at, and keeping teams off the free throw line. And some of why they're not making as many field goals is because we're fouling a little bit too much. That College of Charleston game, the free throw disparity, that really cost us in that game. We only shot 4 and they shot 26. We have to do a better job of not fouling. So even in that College of Charleston game, they didn't make a ton of field goals, and we were doing a great job. We did a good job on the glass in that game too, for the most part, but we've got to be able to do those things and keep teams off the free throw line a little bit better while not losing, the tenacity that we have on defense.
Is there too much emphasis put on the last game of any team's season rather than if you win the regular season, or if you win your conference tournament, or you win 14 out of 15 games?
Yeah. I think that's, I think that's the plight of to some degree mid-major basketball. And, I remember this, Coach Self wouldn't remember this at all, but we played them a number of years ago. And it was a year we won the regular season in our league. And, when you're at Kansas, you're judged basically on what you do in the NCAA tournament, right? And the regular season almost doesn't matter for them.
Yeah.
When you're coaching in the MAC, you're judged on if you get to the NCAA tournament. It's basically 3 games that matter to some degree. And, it's tough because you get in the NCAA tournament and you're Kansas and you can get upset, right? I mean, it just happens. There's a lot of good teams. You play in our conference tournament, you can get upset. There's a lot of good teams that are very similar and have a chance to beat you. So, we try not to judge ourselves or our program just based on one game, but it's hard to do because those games in March really, they matter. And if you win a regular season, last year we were 16-4 in the league and made it to the conference championship game, and we weren't invited to the NIT or the NCAA tournament. So it's tough when you're in these leagues for that reason, but that's all part of it. And you're trying, again, for me, I try my best to just focus on what we can control. I can't focus too much on what somebody else's opinion of a good season is. Does that make sense? Right?
That makes total sense.
Yeah. You try your best. And again, we're all humans. We're not immune to it. And I get it. You want to win a regular season championship. So we play 18 games this year in league. Last year we played 20. Every one of them is important because every one of them could be the difference between our players getting a ring or not getting a ring. And then you play your 3 games in March if you're fortunate enough to get there, and you hope you play as hard as you can. That's all you can ask for.
Coach, last question. How do you feel about potentially the NCAA tournament adding more participants? That's a rumor that's going around.
I think it should be done. I mean, I do. I understand some basketball purists would say, why would you mess with 64? And I get all that, but you keep mentioning there's over 360 Division I teams. And what college athletics is supposed to be about, giving opportunities to players, student athletes. I don't see the harm in adding teams. And, I've floated the idea of, take 56 that automatically make it 56. You have your conference champions, you're at large, and then take those last 8, 4-4, and have a play-in like the NBA does to get the last 12 and 13 line, to get the 4 teams that are going to be on the 12 line and 4 teams that are going to be on the 13 line. Have a 16 team tournament to get to those 8, and then you're going to give teams opportunities, more teams to get in. Have a mid-major group that play for the 13 line and a high major group that play for the 12 seed line, and you've added teams. You haven't disrupted the quote unquote 64 team tournament, but you're giving more teams an opportunity, just like the NBA has done. They've added teams, just like the NFL has done. They've added teams to the wild card, just like Major League Baseball has done. They've added teams to the wild card, and it hasn't hurt their game one bit. It's created more excitement. It's given more fans and players opportunities. And I don't see why that would do anything but benefit all of basketball. If you played all the games on Tuesday and Wednesday, the quote unquote play-in games, and just have those teams play Friday, Sunday, the first round of the tournament, the 12 and 13 line, I don't see why that would hurt. And again, I obviously, I know that my voice goes nowhere on that, but that's just something I floated around and feel like it should be expanded at least to some degree.
Yeah, I love that idea. It's going to help the people, I guess, in the upper divisions, maybe that want to get in as a middle team in those, but it's really going to help the quote unquote mid majors get more people in. Like I know the MAC, for example, there are teams in there like you were last year. There are teams in there that may not be getting in either tournament that could be a Sweet 16 team based on the matchups in the NCAA's.
And look, Akron they won our conference tournament last year. I'm pretty sure they were the 4 seed. It might have been the 5 seed. They were tied, I think, for the 4 or 5 seed. And they played UCLA to the final minutes of their first round matchup. The year prior, Ohio went to the NCAA tournament. They were the 5 seed in our conference tournament. So, and they won a game. They beat Virginia, and I forget who they lost to in the second round. I'm not 100% sure, but again, they won a game in the NCAA tournament from the 5 seed in the MAC tournament. So your point is very, very true. You just saw, again, Kent State played Houston, the #1 team in the country, on their court to a 1-possession game with a minute to go. So clearly and our league's not the only one like that, but there's clearly lots of teams that, if given an opportunity, could potentially, win a game or two in that tournament. And it certainly would be awesome if you were in charge of deciding how many teams were in, because it sounds like we'd have more than 68.
Oh yeah. Coach Rob Senderoff, one of my good pals here on Marching to Madness, the coach of the Kent State Golden Flashes. Coach, I'm really happy you were able to come on, and I wish you the best, and I hope we can do this again at some point.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me again. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome.